From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. Hey, James, it's great to be back with you. And we're doing a special episode because we're officially going to celebrate our 2-year anniversary. So happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here as always, Steve. Yeah, it was funny to think because it was like a month ago that HAPMA had their virtual conference, and I was very busy during that time, so I didn't get to attend as much as I wanted to. But just that week had me really thinking. I was like, 'cause that's where we got this whole idea was we talked during the HEPMA virtual conference, and we're like, hey, let's do this podcast.
Absolutely. I think it was after the session that I was talking about programming versus configuration, and we've
Yep.
gotten to know each other through social media. But I think part of the idea came about in that there were just so many people that had questions and were interested in learning and wanted to just pick our brain. And I think which is why we came up with the title that we did. And it's amazing how much we've been able to accomplish in 2 years, and it's actually been a fast 2 years, but a lot's happened.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a lot has happened in a short time frame. I mean, hell, I moved across country during this.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
switched
So
jobs, changed location, doing
yep.
things, been able to advance your position, probably doing less programming than you were.
Oh yeah. But I'm hoping to get back. I haven't lost that desire to program. Right now it's just the timing. I don't have the bandwidth to add that on as a need right now. But trust me, I sit there, I'm looking at the system, I'm like, I can make this better. I know I can make this better. I just gotta get under the hood. I just haven't gotten to that point yet.
So I think the other thing is too, if you look at it, the offset is you're doing writing, you're developing more content,
Yep.
speaking, doing things that you probably didn't even envision yourself doing 2 years ago.
No, I definitely did not envision any of this 2 years ago. I mean, it all started longer than that. Not much longer. It's actually been a short time frame. I mean, 2019 is kind of when it all blew up for me, as I call it. And so it's been a short time frame. I'm never like funny is my writing is horrible. I was a horrible writer. I'm still a horrible writer, spelling, grammar wise, all that stuff. So I was amazed when I was asked to be a writer, a monthly contributor. Um, Plus, I mean, the new job, plus the being asked to speak at different shows, like all that stuff really has taken me back. And like I said, been a very short time frame. And that's because building, like Tim mentioned, like what was it, 2 episodes ago, or maybe last episode, where just building that connection and building off of that and going, that's really what the community of AV folks have done, at least for my career, and I'm sure for yours as well, Steve.
Yeah, I would agree with you because I mean, my background is in engineering, and I specifically try to avoid doing as much right as any writing through my schooling. And now I find myself writing, but when you think about it, just like doing podcasting or anything else, you just get better with practice, and everybody starts somewhere. And I think one of the old adages that I've heard is that if you're not disappointed or disgusted with the quality that you did when you started, then you didn't start soon enough. So
Oh, yeah. That actually reminds me of my first AV program I wrote. And it was for I got dumped on the AV team. Or not really a team, but in the AV department. And then there was only like 4 of us, and that by the time I left, it was only 2 of us for the university. So, but when I got dumped on there and doing the AV, and I was told I was programmed. My boss came to me and was like, we need to control these microphones in these rooms. They were a new addition. I never programmed AV, never did anything with AV before, let alone programmed it, of course. And then, so I wrote it, got it working, a lot of trial and error, made change a line of code, broke something, fix it. 5 years later, I went looking at that code and I'm like, how is this still running? Like, how does that work? Like, that should not be working, but it is.
It's the fact that we are always looking to learn and we're always looking to improve, I think, is what we're really emphasizing here. And
Yep.
by staying at it, you're just naturally going to get better, because it's practice and iteration, and the fact that you're doing it over and over again is only going to make you more comfortable. And hopefully also with regard to programming, you're looking and seeing how other people do things, so it helps you to improve. But I think we've all been in that same boat, and I hope I'm interested to hear what our listeners have to say, but I can imagine that they can also relate to that same situation.
Yeah, I would love to hear what our listeners have to say on that note, but I agree. I think we've all been in that situation one way or another. And it's when I am not calling anyone out, but I think when you haven't had that situation, you're not pushing yourself. So you need to get into a position like that.
So to kind of bringing the conversation back to us in the past 2 years, what are some things that you feel we've been able to see change, or we've found to evolve, or even how have we grown here?
I definitely think, and I still think it's early. It's hard to hold this one, but I think AV in general is starting to see the value of programmers. Um, eh, I see less of this. I'm paying you how much? You still have some of those folks still say, "Hey, programming is just a line item," or "Hey, it's just a couple lines of code." But the overall feeling I'm getting is there's a better understanding of that. I don't know what you guys are doing, but I know it's hard work, like type deal. It's not you'll make that work, no big deal. It's like, there's more, can you do this? What resources do you need? How can we help you get there? Um, part. That's what I'm starting to see. I don't know what about you, Steve?
Yeah, I would love to also say that that's the case, and for us and for me, and we've talked about this before, is that we've really pivoted our business to work on some of the things that are helping other programmers. So I find that to be very rewarding by doing some of the fundamental pieces, building blocks that other programmers can use to develop their systems and programs and customize the solutions that their clients need. Um, so I think in that regard, some of that is becoming harder and harder, and we've gotten respect because programmers can appreciate when those things are available. So what I'm referring to is modules, drivers, plugins, those types of things that either are needed to interface with different devices, or also can be done. It can be a solution for a particular function or application. So I have found that to be very rewarding. But I would like to think that, uh, based on what you were saying too, is that programmers have found their voice a little bit, and there's been, and I hope that this podcast has helped with that, because if we're all doing things behind the scenes and people don't know that we're doing it, then they can't really appreciate it. And if they don't understand what goes into it and what value programmers bring, And I think a lot of times it would be associated with writing code, but as we know, there's so much more that goes into it. I hope that we've been over the past 2 years a part of that um, movement to be able to gain more attention and create more value, or identify more value that programmers bring.
Oh, I agree there, and I would like to kind of spotlight two folks I feel who I don't want to say we helped them or we were the cause of this, but more of we helped them find their voice. One being Kate Atkins. She she has really, I felt, come into be a value person on Twitter. She's always been one. It's just now I think people are starting to see that. And yes, we did have her on a guest here as well because she is a rock star in the industry. And another one is Erin Moran. She's was what our first guest that we had,
Mhm. She was.
and she is now the co-chair of Padma on the board. She is now the host of EdTech on AV Nation. She has really bloomed out there onto the social medias and network and really have made it something about herself. And these are two amazing folks in our industry. And it's great to know that they are getting out there. And I hope that we help them do that. If we didn't, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just glad they're out there because both of these folks have a humongous value to add to the industry.
I couldn't agree more. I think you're right on target there, and I think that if it wasn't for these types of things, if it wasn't for, as Tim said in our past episodes, if it wasn't for podcasts, social media, other ways of making connections, we wouldn't have gotten to know them as much, and we wouldn't have been able to uh, hear their story, get to help them amplify their voice, but also learn from them too, because I think that that's what a lot of this is about. Is it's always a two-way street, and even though somebody may be starting out or they may find that they're don't have much to offer, it's still like Tim said before, is it's their perspective, their experience, and there's a lot of value in that. So I think that that's a really insightful for you to share, and I think that we take a lot of pride in having them on our show. And so, if you haven't heard them on our shows, please rewind back in our catalog of the past 100+ episodes, and check them out and listen to their stories.
Definitely. And like you were saying, like what Tim mentioned, it's getting out there. We, I know we both, you and I, have tried to stress that on the show is how us programmers need to put our voices out there. And I know doing it for me has really springboard my career. It sounds like with Kate and Aaron, them putting themselves out there is helping them. And like I said, we were a platform that they hopefully that help amplify their voice, just like any other platform, Twitter and all the ed tech and all these other platforms they're using to help amplify their voice. So that's what Steve and I really want from our listeners is to help you us programmers amplified our voices because we do have experience, we do have knowledge. I always sit there and think no one wants to hear what I have to say. No one wants to read what I have to write. But I get a lot of feedback on my articles. I have people walking up to me at Infocom and going, "Hey, I love as a programmer." So I don't think I give much value, but other people think so. So the same thing I say for our listeners: you may not think you're giving value, but there are people who need to hear what you have to say.
I would very much agree with that. I think that to add to what you're saying, sometimes it's just a matter of getting that confidence, and you might be willing to say something that somebody else is thinking, and that can go a long way. So you're not only helping yourself, but you're helping other people, and you're creating more awareness and knowledge, and being able to uh, demonstrate what we're doing, and why this profession is important, and because of that, you're waving the flag for other programmers that will follow in your path, because by putting yourself out there, now all of a sudden you've become a role model in some regard, and there's always going to be somebody behind you that wants to be like you. So I think that that's a really good point, and I think that if there's nothing that else that we've been able to do over the past 2 years, I hope that we've been able to inspire people in that regard.
Yeah, same here. I that's probably what I would like the most from this podcast is that our listeners feel inspired to get their voices out there.
So we'll probably wrap this one up, but if there any any thoughts about where you want to see things moving forward into the next year, and as we progress, anything that you would want to ask of the listeners, or some things that could help us really take this podcast to the next level?
Uh, I want to hear what more from our listeners. I mean, we do hear from our listeners, but I really would like to hear more from them because I know there are folks who are listening. We know that, Steve. You know that. I know that. We've run into you folks at trade shows and ISE and other locations, but we want to make sure that we hear from you and make sure we're asking answering questions you might have. Like I said, Steve and I may not have the answer for you, but at least we can use this platform to get your question out there because there's somebody out there who can answer that questions you might have. Um, but I think also the knowledge we have between Steve and I, we can hopefully steer your question for you. And that's what we're looking for is building that community and building that relationship. So that's probably what I'm looking for in the next year is solidifying that a little more, getting it out there a little more. Is even Tim mentioned is, getting the marketing is if you don't know as the programmer, you don't know you need us. And I'm using Tim's word there, like you don't know you need us. We are out here advocates for our programmers and hopefully getting your voices out there for you.
Yeah, I would agree, and if we could just share one of the things that as a podcast we've passed 5,000 downloads, which is pretty cool, which means that we're averaging 50 plus downloads per episode, probably getting more with the later episodes than the earlier ones. So is a very consistent group of people that are listening and downloading, and it's really great to hear from you. So please keep that up. It helps us, and if we could do something to help you, and if there's something that this podcast can either clarify, address, or provide access to, please don't hesitate to reach out, because we do think that it's important that we're serving a purpose, and we're not just here chatting with each other, because we could do that anyway without hitting record. We want to do it in a way that it's going to be valuable, and it's going to add to what this industry needs.
I agree.
So with that, it's probably a good place for us to wrap this one. James, how could people get in touch with you, learn what you're up to, and reach out to you to tell you what they think?
Oh, I really hope I hear from our listeners. Again, you can get me on Twitter, AV_James King. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. I am on LinkedIn. I'm not as active there. Board member for HEPMA, so anything but HEPMA, I'm there somewhere. Writer for the Higher Ed Digital Magazine. Again, Google me, you'll find me. But I would love to hear from you.
So for me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media. You can reach my company, Control Concepts, at controlconcepts.net. And also do writing. I'm involved with AV Nation on the Estate of Control podcast. But do reach out to us, and maybe this is the charge for the last 2 years. We've been putting in a consistent effort to provide value, and it'd be really great just to get a thumbs up and hear what everybody thinks. So if you could please share this episode or your favorite episode, that would mean a lot, and it would also help create exposure, get more people interested in listening, and also we'd like to get more voices involved. So let us know what you think and what you want to hear more about, and we'll make sure to incorporate that as in the coming years. So we enjoy doing this, and we want to continue as long as we're providing value. You can listen to this podcast on any of your favorite podcast players, Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as watch the video on YouTube. So please check us out in any of those formats. Thanks for being part of this show for the past 2 years, and we look forward to more in the years to come. This has been Ask the Programmer.